They left her to die, but a human's courage changed the alien warrior's fate. The desert at dusk looked like a kiln cooling. Sand turned violet, heat leaking into the dark. Jace had meant to cross the salt flats before nightfall, but the signal dragged him off course. A faint distress pulse, old Keth frequencies that every sane human freighter ignored. He followed it anyway, threading his way through black columns of basalt until he saw her. She lay where the rocky shelf broke into a shallow ravine, armor cracked and scorched, the gleam of a snapped spear jutting from the sand. The Keth warrior's four-fingered hand still gripped a broken blade. Her crest, a fan of iridescent quills, was matted with dust and blood. Above her heart, a brand burned in dark ink, a circle split by a line. Forsworn. Jace's throat went dry. The Keth did not rescue the forsworn. They left them to the wind and the stone and called it justice. He cut his engine, hopped down and went to one knee. "Hey," he said softly, as if talking to a spooked horse. "I've got you." Her eyes snapped open. Amber irises ringed in black. She hissed, a sound like glass kissed by a flame, and tried to lunge. Pain wrenched her back. The hiss turned to a ragged laugh. "Human," she rasped in broken trade. "Leave." "Not happening." He slid his pack under her head, fingers working through the field kit. The spear haft had missed vital organs, but the wound was deep. He shouldered his fear. "Name." No answer. Only the steady, trembling rise and fall of her chest as he sterilized the wound and sealed it with foam. He used his canteen to wet her lips. She tried to bat his hand away and failed. "Yara," she whispered at last, as if surrendering a weapon. "Jace," he returned. "Try not to die, Yara. The night gets cold out here." He carried her to the shadow of his crawler, rigging a tarp between basalt spires to block the wind. When darkness fell, the desert sang, metallic rustles, the far-off cry of something winged. Jace stoked a tiny coil stove and set a pot to warm, keeping the flame low. Yara slept shivering. Twice he woke to her fingers clutching the air. On the third time she woke fully, watching him with fever-bright eyes. "You do not fear me?" she asked. He smiled without humor. Terrified. Still not leaving. Her crest lifted, unimpressed and yet interested. "You risk blood feud. I am cast out. I can live with angry neighbors," he said, and passed her the warmed broth. "I don't do well with leaving people to die." She drank, hands unsteady. In the shaky light, the brand over her heart seemed to stare at him. Yara noticed his gaze and turned slightly to hide it. "At dawn," she said, voice rough, "they marched on the Black Ridge. We were seen. I gave warning. My commander refused to change ground. We lost warriors. I refused the final charge." Disgust twisted her mouth. "Cowardice, they named it. The witness marked me and left me with the dead. Refused a suicide run," Jace translated. "Sounds like sense, not fear." "Among the Keth," she said, "sense is proved by victory." Her eyes flicked up. "Save your pity. Do not tether your fate to mine." Jace pretended not to hear the last part. He checked her bandages and bolstered the splint he'd improvised. "There's a shuttle shanty at the edge of the flats. Doc there owes me 2 favors. We make it by noon, you might keep that crest." Before dawn, engine lights shimmered on the horizon, search lamps combing the ravine walls. Yara tensed. Her quills clicked softly. "They return," she breathed. "To confirm I die. Then we'll disappoint them." Jace killed the stove, snapped the tarp lines, and dragged the crawler deeper into shadow. When the lights washed over the basin, He crouched with a flare pistol and a small mirror, angling a beam toward a distant ridge. The scouts peeled that way, hunting a ghost. Yara watched him, something like bewilderment carving new lines in her face. "You lied to warriors," she said when the lights faded. "I redirected them." He grimaced. "Lying is when it's not necessary." They rode hard, the crawler stuttering across salt flashes where ancient seas had died. Yara bit back groans with each jolt. At the shanty, an aging medic named Paul cursed when he saw the brand, then set his jaw and got to work anyway. Yara bore the stitching without a sound. Jace held her uninjured hand and told the ceiling to hold still. 2 days passed. The desert widened around the shanty like a breath held too long. Yara tested her balance each morning, muscles trembling, then stronger. Jace fixed the cracked plating of her cuirass and tried not to stare when she moved like a blade unsheathed. They spoke in fragments, the taste of ground curry root, bitter like regret, the shape of Keth constellations, the hunter, the harp, the broken eye, the rhythm of human music. Jace tapped out a beat on a ration tin. Yara laughed despite herself. On the third night, a coded knock rattled the shanty door. Paul paled. "Keth warband," he mouthed. "They asked after an outcast." Yara reached for her sword. Jace put his hand over hers. "We can run," he said. She shook her head. "Running confirms the brand." She touched the edge of the mark, not quite flinching. "There is a path. Ancient. Path of blades. Trial against the witness who named me. If I spare him, I reclaim my path. If I fall, I die honest. Oz. I will go." "Then I'm going with you," Jace said quietly. She studied him for a long time. "Why?" "Because you're not alone. Not anymore." The Keth camp brooded beneath a spine of basalt. Fires smoked. Tents flashed with bone-white sigils. Warriors turned at their approach, hands on grips. The witness stepped forward, quills lacquered, face painted in the stark geometry of law. Yara's jaw tightened. "I name the path," she said in her own tongue, voice ringing. "Before the gathered. Witness core, mark me with truth." Kor sneered. "You seek theater, coward." Jace stepped forward, heart punching his ribs. "She seeks law." He held up a wrist clip, its screen casting cold light. A recording, the ravine at dawn, coarse voice ordering the doomed final charge, Yara's warning, the abandonment. He'd pulled it from a forgotten combat node near the crash site. "I speak as outclan. As witness." A hiss rippled through the ring of warriors. Kor's gaze found Jace like a thrown knife. "You bring a human to our fire to dress your fear," he said to Yara. "Fight then. We end this." They moved to the circle of stamped sand. Jace could do nothing but watch and feel useless. Yara and Kor circled, blades whispering, footsteps etching arcs. Kor struck first, hard, relentless, the ancient rhythm of the Keth duel. Yara met him, turned, yielded ground, bleeding from a reopened seam. She was losing. "Breathe," Jace called softly. "Not to survive. To decide." Her shoulders settled. On the next exchange she stopped retreating, let Kor's blade pass close, and stepped into him, not away. The clash rang like struck glass, sparks arced. She wrenched, reversed, and sent his sword spinning. Kor fell to one knee, panting, throat bared. Silence fell hard and total. Yara lifted her blade. Her quills flared. Then she let the weapon lower until its point kissed the sand. "I spare you," she said. It hit the camp like rain on a furnace. Warriors exhaled. Some looked away, ashamed. Kor did not move for a long moment. When he rose, his face was human enough to read. Shock, then anger, then something smaller, harder.